Hey everyone, my name's Walter, and I'm here on a brand new channel to talk about something I've been enjoying. Kengan Ashura is a martial arts manga, kind of akin to Grappler Baki. My hope is that you've at least seen the Netflix anime, because I might spoil the endings of the first round fights. Any other spoilers will hopefully be non-consequential details. My goal here is to explain all the fighters up to the end of the first round, so let's get into it. Imai Cosmo is our resident jiu-jitsu expert, though he obviously dabbles in MMA. Cosmo's 19 at the time of the tournament, making him quite a prodigy. He was once fighting against 4 Yakuza, when a wandering jiu-jitsu master saved him and decided to teach him the ropes. He is currently, at this point, undefeated in Kengan matches. Cosmo's mostly a grappler, but his strikes are also strangely heavy, capable of hurting Adam Dudley, his much larger first-round opponent. His special attack is called the Zone and features him striking with a triangle choke during his opponent's weak moment, leading them to being choked out before they even notice. Also, the author really loves this character, so he usually looks pretty strong. His first-round opponent is Adam Dudley. This man's one of many non-martial artists here, coming from a background in hockey. Here's a non-consequential spoiler. His father is pro wrestler Stan Hansen with a grill. That is hilarious. Adam Dudley isn't even remotely human-shaped, allowing him to do things like hit Cosmo so hard he bounces off the ground. He's also somehow capable of throwing a full-force punch while flat on his back. The mount is a really bad position to be in jiu-jitsu. Your goal in the mount isn't to win, but to get out of the mount. If people could really throw a punch from that position, it would completely change MMA. Next up is Kono Haruo, the largest character in a series filled with large characters. He's from the Gurkha, a tribe of mountain people who function as mercenaries. Yes, they are a real people, unlike the Kare. Haruo is just short of 8 feet tall and shockingly fast and strong despite how fat he is. He is said to be the avatar of Indra. Yeah, much like Sasuke, I guess. Haruo is another character who doesn't use martial arts, relying on his size and strength to beat people into submission. He also seems to be able to fight while unconscious, where he's even stronger. His opponent, Akoya Seishu, is the character that people love to hate. He's a cop, and he's a bastard, unsurprisingly. He uses one of the most interesting fighting styles in the series, Taiho Jutsu, the martial art that Japanese police used. He essentially fights like he has a shield and baton, but he uses his arms instead. I should also mention that he's a dirty cheater and has intervals fed to him. I think this makes him weaker generally, but it notably means that Cosmo's zone won't work on him as long as he's being fed intervals. This guy is easily one of the most deranged characters in the series, and he regularly murders mostly innocent people. And now we come to Ryan Kare, the first of a number of assassins to join the tournament. Ryan does know his family's martial art, but he has chosen not to use it, only relying on pure strength to beat his opponents. He does use one of his clan's moves, though, Release. It allows him to use 100% of his body's strength, and he can do this without hurting himself because the Kare practiced selective breeding and he was just born stronger than normal people. Ryan is also only 21 years old, probably his biggest weakness. Mokichi Robinson is another character with an interesting martial art. Bartitsu is a mix of boxing and jiu-jitsu that was popularized in a Sherlock Holmes novel. I happen to use boxing myself, so I'm a pretty big fan of boxing-based characters. Also, he's a priest and he looks pretty cool. There's another priest in Omega who was recently introduced, but this was the only one in Ashura as far as I know. Mokichi is probably pretty strong, but he had a bad opponent here. Up next, we have another assassin, Inaba Ryo. This guy fights with his hair, which is supernaturally strong, and he can manipulate it in all sorts of ways. Easily one of the least realistic martial arts in the manga. He's also up against the main character in the first round, so sucks to be him. I think I'll skip Oma, actually, just suffice to say he's the main character and knows a martial art that's pretty much magic. Murobuchi Gozo is another non-martial artist. He uses his ability as a decathlete to fight. He's based on Olympic hammer-throwing gold medalist Koji Murofushi. He also has lost to his first-round opponent in the past and purposely picked him again. And that first-round opponent is Wakatsuki Takeshi, the Superman. He has the condition Superman Syndrome, which does exist and can make someone stronger, but not to this extent. This guy's muscles are so dense that he weighs twice what he should. As a small child, he was already able to easily destroy high schoolers. Adam Dudley, who I described as not even remotely human-shaped, took one look at this guy and thought he was unfathomable. Wakatsuki is also a black belt in karate, a martial art he's been practicing for most of his life. Sawada Kezaburo is a very flamboyant gay man who uses ballet as his martial art. It's one of the more creative styles in the series, but we don't actually get to see much out of him. He is notably supposed to be Rahito's rival, so I would assume the two are around the same strength at this point. I wouldn't even mention he's gay, but he really doesn't let you forget it. And his opponent, the monster Julius Reinhold. This man is so powerful that he actually has a physical advantage over Wakatsuki, the one with Superman syndrome. He seems like he'd be an idiot, but he's actually a doctor and created the steroids that he uses. He's functionally one of the more intelligent fighters in the series. He's also a non-martial artist, saying that the truly strong need no techniques. He's a very scary dude. Muteba Jizanga is an African mercenary who seems to specialize in killing people with his bare hands. A martial art is never mentioned for him, but he does seem to use some kind of kickboxing based on his experience as a mercenary. He also specializes in lethal strikes, and the Kengan matches allow people to kill each other at this point, so it's pretty notable. Muteba is blind, but he uses his hearing to pretty much see better than a normal person can. He can even tell what's going on watching it on the monitors, crazily enough. Meguro Misaki is probably the most deranged character in the series, which is saying something. This man was so skilled at judo that he managed to throw Olympic hopeful adults and his own father to death as a tiny 13-year-old. So now that he's a gigantic 6'5" man, you can only imagine what he's capable of. Unfortunately for him, he feels pleasure from getting hit, so he doesn't bother to dodge attacks. Yeah, against a guy who uses lethal techniques. R.I.P. Meguro Misaki. Sekibayashi Jun is a pro wrestler who's already fought the main character and mostly dominated him in their match. He's more of a classic pro wrestler, like he cares about kayfabe in a way that people don't really in modern pro wrestling. He refuses to block or dodge attacks, which I feel like pro wrestlers do both of those things a lot. He's a pretty cool guy and a contender for the tournament. Kyozan Takeru, at this point known as the Brawler of the Sumo Ring, is the younger brother of two Yokozunas, who has decided to embrace a more ancient style of sumo that closely resembles MMA. Yeah, I know, there was a sumo wrestler in UFC 1 and he got destroyed. Sumo doesn't actually gel that well with MMA considering their matches are so short. This man is very powerful though. He gives Sekibayashi a hard time, which is impressive considering he's only 20 years old. Next up is Yorizuka Sapang. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's our representative of Lethwei, also known as Burmese boxing. It's similar to Muay Thai, but even more hardcore, allowing headbutts, which is just insane to me. This guy is supernaturally durable because he had a huge man hit him over the head with a sledgehammer from the age of 5 on. Holy CTE, Batman. He is also the lifelong rival of fellow fighter Gaolong Wangsawat. However, I think he always loses. Karo Yoshinari, known to fans as Fishing Grandpa, is another non-martial artist who uses his skills at whaling to fight. He's 6'9", making him not the second tallest, but at least the second largest in the tournament. He's able to punch it out with Sapang pretty well, and he also resembles a martial artist with his insane balance after intentionally taking a hit to the head. What's with all the headshots here? Nezu Masami is up next. He's the former champion of a different underground fight club, Bishamon, seemingly named after the lucky god of war, Bishamonten. This guy is the second tallest at the tournament, 7'3", the same height as WWE wrestler Omos. We don't get to see much of him because his opponent's a little above his pay grade. That opponent is Mikazuchi Rei, the Lightning. This guy's another assassin, but he's given up killing. And pretty much everything except hanging on his employer all the time. He might be the most absurd character in the series, being able to run so fast that people in the stands can't even see him. You'd have to be going many thousands of miles per hour for that to happen. We can easily see any man-made object, so he'd have to be faster than a jet at least. Rihito the Ripper is another character who's been beaten by the main character. He also is really unlucky, so he had to pick his slot dead last. Rihito doesn't practice a martial art at this point, but he's very naturally gifted and fights using kickboxing, compounded by the fact that he could just rip people apart with his fingers. Unfortunately for him, his opponent is Kuroki Gensai, another assassin. Kuroki was the last opponent that anyone wanted to fight. This man can casually stick his fingers through steel or cement. He's referred to as the avatar of a wisdom king, the Buddhist gods of strength. He actually practices a form of karate from Okinawa called the Kaiwan style that allows him to use his hands like a spear and stab people. But he's generally a surprisingly defensive character, a good trait to have for this tournament. Nikaido Ren is the leader of the Heavenly Wolves, who practice a fairly mystical form of kung fu. I think Nikaido's actually pretty strong, but he gets kind of messed up here. His opponent is a guy who's obviously a major player, Kiryu Setsuna. Setsuna has a past with the main character, and he's completely insane. His abilities are Blink, a way of moving using blind spots and timing, and the Rakshasa's Palm, a twisting move that he uses to very devastating effect. He is highly implied to be a contender to win. Our next fighter, Hatsumi Sen, is also implied to be one of the strongest. He's our Aikido expert, and he's technically the replacement for the main character. He notably has one of the few wins over the Wild Tiger, Wakatsuki Takeshi. He's noted to be pretty lazy and sporadic, but when he's in top condition, he's supposed to be a match for anyone. He was even scouted as a possible Fang of Metsudo in the past. His opponent in the first round is Chiba Takayuki, a man from the inside who works as an actor. He's a special kind of actor who can replicate martial arts moves after practicing them for a few hours. He lies and tells Hatsumi that he can replicate any move after seeing it once, causing the Aikido master to take him very seriously. He unfortunately tries to use an Aikido move against him, and it doesn't go well for him. Hanafusa Hajime is another supposed non-martial artist. He's a brilliant surgeon who likes to borderline cheat and use things like hidden weapons and viruses. He also uses Kung Fu, which he's pretty adept at, making up for his lack of muscle by hitting pressure points. He doesn't feel any pain, having performed surgery to cut off his feeling. Bando Yohei is one of the most bizarre fighters in the tournament. This man has a very unusual range of motion, allowing him to not only withstand being hanged multiple times, but also to use his arms in very unusual ways. His thick muscles function as armor, protecting him from Hanafusa's Kung Fu. He doesn't show all of his skills in the first match, but he does look pretty impressive. Gaolong Wongsawat is up next. He's the world heavyweight boxing champion. He's small for a heavyweight boxer, but pretty big for someone from Thailand, I think. He used to be the best in his country at Muay Thai, but then he decided it wasn't enough and decided to start boxing for his king. His true form is in mixing his boxing and Muay Thai. His first round opponent is Kaneda Suekichi, easily the physically weakest fighter in a tournament stacked full of superhumans. This man used a technique called foresight to take the position from Himuro Ryo, a much stronger fighter in general. He's also abusing painkillers because his style involves getting hit a lot before he's done figuring the opponent out. He definitely wasn't going to beat Gaolong, at least. Naoya Okubo is the world champion in MMA, and wants to prove he's just as strong as the underground fighters. To this end, he challenges the Fang, the favorite to win the tournament, in the first round. He does look pretty strong, his fighting style being based around not cooperating with what the opponent wants. He's an expert in MMA, wrestling, and boxing, making him quite a threat. However, his opponent is Kano Agito, the Fang of Metsudo. This character is stated to be the favorite to win the tournament, and he's never lost at this point. Agito was put through a goo ritual, forcing him to fight and kill everyone he trained with, or he'd die instead. This gave him an insane ability called Formless, where he can dodge in strange ways to avoid attacks. He's also at the apex of martial arts, making him a pretty terrifying opponent. Okay, so there we go, a brief summary of every character in the first round. I am, of course, caught up on Omega myself. I might make some more current content if there's any interest. Been a while since I started a new channel. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you have something to say about the content or the series, let me hear it in the comments. I'm sure I made some mistakes and all. Also, consider subscribing for hopefully more of the same. Big thanks also to my awesome patrons who help support me over on Patreon. I really appreciate the help. Have a great day, everyone, and finish the manga if you haven't. It's quite good.